So, thank you all for joining us for our Fit for Success podcast. My name is Kristen Nolan, and I am a speaker and professional expert for busy women and men who are entrepreneurs. And I'm so excited to invite Chip Eichelberger today to join me. Today's podcast is for you if you are a speaker committed to getting booked consistently and building a business that sustains you financially and physically. Chip has delivered over 1,000 plus high energy presentations for organizations like State Farm, Hyatt, DOW, Harley Davidson, PricewaterhouseCoopers, Remax, and Blue Cross Blue Shield, amongst others. He spent 5 years with Tony Robbins, winning Sales Leader of the Year twice and helping bring Tony to new places like Australia and the UK. Chip has received the Certified Speaking Professional designation. This is the highest earned designation given by the National Speaker Association and held by only 7% of their members. Chip's newest book is The Smart Guide to Accomplishing Your Goals, co-authored with Jeff Davidson. Chip, thank you so much for being here today. I know you are so busy, and I want to welcome you to our show.
Kristen, thanks for having me. Appreciate the opportunity.
Absolutely. So Chip, tell our audience a little more about how you got started in the speaking industry.
It's interesting. I had been with a corporate job with a sportswear company called Janssen for 4 years. And after a couple of corporate buyouts, was fired. They cut the sales force in half and had an opportunity when I was in San Diego, very serendipitously respond to a little classified ad in the newspaper about promoting a national celebrity who was committed to making a difference. So that sounded interesting. It turned out to be for Tony Robbins, a pre-infomercial about 1988, and saw Tony one night and was very impressed. A week later, I was working for him, and 5 years on the road doing about 1,500 presentations to a wide variety of groups to help market his seminars. Kind of set me up for professional speaking, and loved Tony like a brother. Wouldn't be doing anything like I'm doing now without my experience with him. And so it really set me up. So the last 23 years, I've done over 1,000 presentations. Companies, they have an offsite convention. They need the right opening or closing speaker to kind of set the tone. And that's what I've done. It's been an interesting path. Certainly, Tony's focus on health and taking care of yourself has been a big impact on me personally. I've tried to walk my talk the last 25 years, and it certainly helped. I mean, in my business, you have to be, just like you have to be a product of the product. And that's really helped me.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh my God. I would love to hear a little bit more about how Tony inspired you all to really take care of your bodies while you were on the road doing those presentations. Anything that he said that really made a lasting impression on you?
Well, there's so many little Tonyisms, but I mean, he really planted the seed of looking long term. One of my points I try to make, because some people out there listening to this, number one, I praise you for watching. That says something about you. It's always the people who really needed to watch this and watch your podcast don't watch it. So Right. It says something about you that you're doing it. But number one, you got to think long term. And my belief is we've got less and less time, right? Mm-hmm. But we know more and more. So there's a point there where those intersect where you've got to take action. Mm-hmm. And you got to be thinking long term, because I don't want to wake up one day and thinking, what if? Because right now you say, hey, I'm too busy. I'm building my business. I'm growing, whatever I'm doing. I got a young family. I don't have the time to take care of myself. Well, okay. How long is that going to go? Because what's going to happen likely is one day at 50 or 60, you're going to wake up with the disease you could have easily prevented. Mm-hmm. And now you're going to have to spend major amounts of time, major amounts of money, major amounts of stress to reverse something you could have easily avoided. Because one of the things Tony used to talk about in Living Health was that, 76% of diseases are preventable. And that really resonated with me. I thought, okay, if that's true, what could I be doing easily on a daily basis to set myself up for long-term health and vitality? Because, you said I'm busy. I can be very, very busy, just like everybody out there. The best thing about what I do as a career, it's a lifestyle business. In the summer, I'm typically slower because there's not as many conventions. It really heats up January to March, September to November. So I've got more time off for the kids and the family, and it works out well.
Right. Yeah, that's amazing. And I absolutely agree with Tony. And it might even be a bigger percentage nowadays.
Yeah.
Right. I know,
Yeah.
with all the crazy chemicals they're putting on our foods and whatnot. And there are so many entrepreneurs that put their health, they put their bodies on the back burner, but you believe, and I'm going to quote you, of taking care of your number one asset. You could not agree, right? Could not agree with you more. But how is it that you've come to believe, aside from what you've learned from Tony, in the power of health and how it drives your business so strongly? For example, have you ever had a time in your life where you put your career ahead of yourself, and how did this impact your success?
Put my career ahead of myself. I mean, there's times when I might have 8 events in 10 days in 8 different cities. That is a lot of flights. That's a lot of cab rides. That's a lot of checking in. But what sustains me is I bring my workout gear on the road. I'm not eating the crap in the airport. I'm bringing healthy stuff when I can. I'm working out every single morning, no matter what it takes. So I've set myself up where I can sustain that. I'm a big believer in tracking what you do. For example, people can download, if you Google, maybe you can put a link to it on my page too, the Get Switched On Energy Schedule. And it's just a commitment to say, hey, I must, not you should, because the challenge is, I should work out more, I should eat better, should, and you end up shooting all over yourself. It's not good. You're going to have a must. What's the minimum number of days you're going to work out? Work out for me is at least 30 minutes aerobic, oxygenating your system, and do some strength. And so here's an example of what it looks like filled out. There's 31 little boxes, right? I've done this for 25 years. I've saved every single one of these.
Wow.
So what you make a commitment, put in the minimum number, and sign it. You take an oath with yourself. You put down the month. There's 31 little boxes. You fill it in, and it says goal, and it says actual, and it says weight. So if your goal is 18 days a month, end of the month, you total up, what did you do?
What did you do?
And then what was your weight there? I mean, I've been within 6 pounds of where I am the last 25 years.
Wow.
My wife is exactly the same way. She's actually the exact same weight when I met her 25 years ago.
That's awesome.
And it wasn't an accident. It's interesting. You asked me about that number one asset. I was doing a program, tough audience. It was Dow AgroSciences brought me up to the prairie provinces of Canada in January. Okay. I had 300 older Canadian farmers, 8 o'clock in the morning. That's a tough group. Whew. Okay. Tough group, right?
Yeah.
Parking lot full of pickup trucks. And
oh my goodness.
One of the ways I resonated with them was asking them, in your operation, because we're not talking 20 acres, we're talking thousands of acres, many of these farmers. And I asked them, what's your number one asset in your operation? And I asked, and they're talking, and you're getting tractor, you're getting equipment, you're getting people. And I said, your number one asset in your operation is you. If something happened to you, what would happen to your overall operation? For most people, pretty dire. I mean, if you're an entrepreneur or you're a business leader, or you're just listening to this by chance and you think, I don't have time. You don't have time not to. So you've got to carve out the belief that the best gift you can give other people is taking great care of yourself. How can you give to others if you're stressed, if you have low energy, if you're not feeling good about how you look? I mean, it does make a difference. So it's again, that thinking that long term. And the reason I like this schedule is you sign it and you take an oath and you track it. You put it on the mirror in your bathroom. I love apps. I mean, I've had my Fitbit for many years. I track that activity, but you have to open an app. This is staring at you on the mirror,
face,
right in your face, and you can't get away from it. So, and you feel good when you do it. And you hit that first month, you hit that number, it feels great and you feel better. And the value of it though, you go second month, 6 days in a row, you haven't filled out a box, you feel bad. You should feel bad if you're not reaching your own standards. So that's just a little tool that's helped sustain me. I don't know how many hundreds of thousands of people I've spoke to over the last 25 years, but every one of them has filled in a number and signed it. I don't know what percentage go back and put it on their mirror, but a pretty good percentage do it. And I've got story after story after story after story of people who made changes. And the beautiful thing that I try to get across to people, and I'm sure you believe it too, is that it's the power of one decision. if you can get better and feel more energy and have a better, less stress level and feel better about who you are, it impacts your relationships, it impacts your business, it impacts everything.
Oh yeah, 100%. And actually it's interesting that you have that tracking sheet. One of the things that I have my clients do is use an app. So that is an app. You do have to open it. It's called Way of Life.
Okay.
And with that, you can track multiple things. So multiple habits. One of the gentlemen I interviewed a few months back introduced me to the app, and I absolutely love it because it's the same concept, right?
Yeah.
It's just making sure that you're marking the box.
Right.
You either mark it green or you mark it red. And when you see a lot of reds in the row, you start feeling really bad.
Yeah, right.
And to me, tracking the actual habit itself surpasses the number that you see on a scale by a long shot, because I know that if they are consistently engaging in these habits, that's going to be the overall winner. Weight's going to fluctuate depending on if you ate a piece of bread and you didn't react to it well.
Right.
But if you're, continuously taking the action, that just really says a lot. And I love the point that you brought up about the number one asset to those farmers, and as it pertains to you as the entrepreneur and the head of your speaking business. I mean, I cannot imagine what would happen to me if I got so sick that I couldn't operate for months.
I've done over 1,000 events and I've never been sick where I had any impact on stage. I think I had a squeaky voice one time where I had to do a little hot salt water, but that makes a big difference. But the challenge is I don't think most people are looking long-term. They're really not looking at the impact of those little errors in judgment. And most people aren't making major, there's not a lot of people listening to us that are on heroin right now. If you are, stop, okay? Not good. But it's those little errors in judgment you make out day after day that pushes you off track. And I believe tracking that schedule is good. I mean, I made a decision. I'll be 3 years into it in November, where I wanted to get stronger. I'm, 6'2", 195 pounds, but I play a lot of golf, and my younger son started playing a lot of hockey and got really strong and started blowing it past me on the golf course off the tee. And I go, this is ridiculous. And I read a little article with a guy, and he just said, what was his success habit? And was, he did 10,000 push-ups a year. Which sounds impressive, but 10,000 divided by 365 is 28 a day. So I downloaded this push-up app, and I've averaged, and it goes off every day, and you actually have to put it on the floor and touch your nose to count those off, right? Okay. And I'm 58,000 push-ups in, I don't know how many, 31 months in. And I can't tell you what the discipline of that little streak is done, because the belief I try to get across to people, and you're going to like this, you can use this, where when you make a decision, and I try to challenge people that you never understand, and don't underestimate the impact of one decision, because when you want to change behavior, somebody comes to you for coaching, they say, hey, Kristen, I want to get in shape. Well, let's start. And that streak, you start taking better care of your number one asset. You started a streak, and a streak starts with one. The key, don't kill your streak.
That's right.
Because skipping one day makes it easier to skip the next day. So if you want to get stronger, I mean, to do 28 push-ups, it might take you 14 sets of 2, right? Rest, do 2.
Or 28 sets of 1.
Exactly. Start there. But if you keep doing that, you're going to get up to 7 sets of 4. And then you're going to do 4 sets of 7. Then you're going to do 2 sets of 14. But if you never started, you don't get there. So tracking is crucial for that. Some people, you write down everything you eat. You're tracking your calories, track your workout. But you got to have the belief that keeping score is fun. And there's got to be a few areas for your health. That's why do you go in for a checkup? Why do you go in and get a blood test? Well, you need to know your cholesterol level is, your triglyceride level, or your standing heart rate. You need to know some numbers so you can manage the process.
Absolutely. Yeah, actually, I think Jerry Seinfeld says, don't break the chain. So same thing.
Don't kill the streak. Yeah.
Don't kill the streak. Don't break the chain. I use that
example because he wanted to be a better comic, and he said the way to be a better comic is to write better jokes. The better way to write them is to write them every day. So he actually had a calendar where he just checked off day after day after day. Don't break it. Yeah, very good.
Yeah, exactly. That's actually, he's one of my inspirations in establishing daily healthful habits. So so that's interesting. Let's switch gears a little bit, Chip. When it comes to having the ability to make it as a pro speaker, as you have, you say you have to be the best marketing that you can do is to be great. how do you feel the industry has changed for emerging speakers, and what is the best way that they can consistently put themselves out there in a way that leaves the best impression with their audience?
Okay, interesting. My school of marketing, I like to give the example of Jerry Garcia, leader of the Grateful Dead. Obviously, most people know the Grateful Dead, unbelievably loyal fans, the Deadheads, people tattooing their logo on themselves, giving up their life, traveling around the country. And
Totally.
they had really had one top 40 hit. How did they do that? Well, I read Jerry Garcia's biography. It's fascinating, by the way, the innovations he had as a band. For example, when they would go out, they had to use the PA system at whatever, quote, stadium they were playing. It was horrible. So they actually were the first ones to create their own system to bring it with them. And Jerry said, you don't have to be considered the best of the best. You just want to be considered the only one who does what you do. So you have to carve a niche. You've got to be known for something. So my style has always been a little different. Even if I've got 50 people or I've got 6,500 people, I always do my homework up front, and I create an interactive experience where it's more of a workshop style. People have got a handout, they got to write things down. I ask them questions, they answer, they stand up, they get involved. So that's where the trend has been going, because adult learning strategies, and I try to counsel my clients. I mean, why hire somebody to come in and do a speech? How is a speech going to move the needle? You got to be able to engage people. And number one thing people want that I learned from Tony Robbins is people want an emotional state change. You've got to manage your energy, and you've got to manage the energy and the physiology of the people in the room to get people to take action. It's by getting them involved. So I've always done it that way, and I think it's a little bit moving towards that way. This is a easy business to enter because the barrier for entry is so low. It's
really?
Yeah, well, people, I want to become a speaker. And the funniest misconception, any professional speaker will tell you this, because people always ask, how often do you speak? I've always thought about getting on the circuit. Well, it's like there's a circuit of interchangeable spots that people are booked at, where it's my turn, then it's your turn, then it's his turn, then it's his turn. Yeah. This is a very, very competitive industry, okay? And it's all about positioning, and it's all about documenting your success. And it's about very video driven, as you know. You got to have great video footage of you. My website's getswitchedon.com. If somebody's in the business, for example, wants to get better, if you go to my site under the meeting planner tab, you can kind of use it as a model. How do you do written testimonials? How do you do video testimonials? How do you do your client list? How do you show people that you have a record of success, of really making a difference? And what I try to coach people on doing, whether this is good, whatever business here, and not just speaking, but how are you different before the event happens? How are you different during the time it's taking place? And what are you going to do to add value through time after the fact? That's key things you got to be able to do. That's what meeting planners are looking for.
Okay, got it. So basically, when you're reaching out to meeting planners and pitching yourself.
Well, I don't do that.
Okay.
I've been very blessed, because I'll get back to the first part of your question. The best marketing is to be great. And what I try to get across, and it's hard in marketing, but I try to get across to people, because half of my business comes from speaker bureaus, or a booking agency that I typically pay 25% commission to. It's their client. They sell me, they line me up. Or it's past clients. It's the customer who leaves one company, goes to the next company. It's the person who loves me that tells the meeting planner at their company. I'm not active. I don't have a sales organization. I'm not actively calling people. At my fee level, you really don't sell yourself in that much. But what you've got to be able to do is get across. How do I explain this? There's a chasm between a good speaker and a great speaker. A chasm. It's like going to the comedy club. You mentioned Jerry Seinfeld. Well, go see anybody great at stand-up, whether it was used to love Mitch Hedberg in his prime. Yeah, there's a guy who died of heroin overdose, right? You see the first comedian's kind of funny, and the second guy, you think, oh, he was so good. Then you see Mitch Hedberg come out. The gap between the second guy and Mitch is gigantic. It's the same thing in speaking from the front of the room. So my tip is, if you want to get better, number one, you need a mentor. You need to get coaching. You need really to videotape yourself incessantly and go back and see what works and throw out what doesn't work, and be willing to challenge yourself and realize that you can get better.
Yeah, well, absolutely. So filming yourself, I love that. And in terms of the video footage, that you recommend having on your website, I've heard so many different variations on this. Some people
Yeah.
say, yes, you want to include testimonials in this speaker reel. Some people say, no, you just need to make it a short 2-minute clip max of just you. So what do you think in terms of, one of those?
Okay, I've had good guidance. Ed Primo at Primo, Primeau Productions up in Michigan has done my videos for 20 years. Definitely got to be longer than 2 minutes. The mistake I see with most demo videos is it's too much about the person. They want to see you on stage. They don't want to see you doing a 10-second soundbite. They want to see you from longer length of time. My video is actually 15 minutes. I've got a couple short little testimonials in there, but it gets to me on stage quick. You've got 30 seconds or less to captivate that meeting planner. I go back in the day, videotapes. I was creating videotapes, mailing those out to the bureaus and everything. Now on demand, it's just so different. So, Larry Winget, one of the giants in our industry, has a 50-minute video of what he does. And he says, well, if you want a 6-minute demo, stop it at 6 minutes. You want a 20-minute demo, stop it at 6 minutes. He does exactly what he's going to do. I did for a while. I was testing it where I had a full 90-minute video streaming on my website. And I still have it. I have access to it there. If you're a meeting planner, you want to see it, I'll send it to you. Virtually nobody else in my business is going to send you a 90-minute video to let you watch it. But I've had good luck with it because if they watch it, they book me. Because you can see the energy and the interaction through time. Anybody can look good on a 2-minute demo. Come on.
Yeah, no, that's so true. Actually, now that you're saying it, I've been told it's just funny. It's just so many varying opinions on it. But I think really what matters is you're the one getting booked. So what is working for you as the person getting booked, not just like a hypothetical theory from somebody in media and entertainment, right?
Well, I think with like my YouTube channel, if you look up Chip Eichelberger at YouTube, you find my channel. I've got a Chip's Tips. I got probably 40 little videos. Those are probably 2 minutes to 5 minutes. It's snackable content, but that's good because people want snackable content. It's just the short attention span theater for people today. But we mentioned in the pre-interview about I love Tim Ferriss's podcast. His podcasts can be 90 minutes to 2 hours. If it's good and captivating, it's good and captivating. Why would somebody stop listening or watching? So with the demo, though, one of the tips I'll give people, if you're going to get good footage, hire a crew. Because like most of my footage comes from speaking at a big event. Let's say there's 2,000 people and I'm IMAG on each side. There's big screens, right? The only thing I don't get, though, is a lot of audience shots. So if you hire a separate person to come in and take pictures of the audience loving what you're doing, then you can put that in the video. That is a bonus tip because people want to see the audience reacting.
Yeah, they want to see them getting involved and engaged. And speaking of audience engagement, I'd love to go back to that point that you made about understanding the different learning styles that adults have.
Yeah.
And I have to say that, I've gone to so many, 3-day events lately, and I just have a really hard time sitting there.
Oh my God.
I feel like we're doing so much of just sitting there and I can't take it anymore. My brain can't take it. I just get so squeamish, and I can see other people in the room doing the same. So what tips do you have to help engage the audience more to help different learning styles?
Okay, good question. It kind of depends on your time frame. Are you doing an hour, 2 hours, 4 hours, 8 hours? You got to be able to break it up. I'm typically doing 90-ish minutes, although sometimes shorter. So whenever I do that, I customize that handout. So I've got a skeleton of what I'm going to do, but based on the pre-interviews, and I use stories. Some people who interviewed me based on the pre-phone calls. I'm quoting people. You've got to get people involved. The key thing that I've learned, it's not about you, okay? It's about them. So how can you, like if I'm talking about what's really important, we'll do an exercise, what's really important. I'm not just going to talk about it. You're going to sit down and write. Where do you need focus? Where do you need to discipline? And then we're writing it down. Then people are standing up and talking. And the energy of the room, you feel, just transforms. Or if we're talking about, what are your 3 top priorities this year? That goal setting book has been a good theme for me with, key things. How are you going to actually attain your goals? Not set your goals, attain your goals. So make a discussion about that. What are people's limiting beliefs? Well, whatever you're doing with your presentation, get people involved. I mean, the challenge I see, and again, I've spoken at over 1,000 conventions. The reason I've lasted so long, because my marketing is I will be the energy source for your meeting. You know how that's easy? Because most of them suck. It's death by PowerPoint. It's droning on after PowerPoint, after a person talking with no energy like this over and over and over. Compared to what they just did, I mean, I am a shining light for that convention, right? So it's easy to stand out. Because that's one of the things, one of the common questions, you do have to be funny to be a professional speaker. Well, only if you want to get paid. You've got to have some humor and energy. People will forgive anything except a passion for what you're talking about. I've seen some very successful speakers with some very average material, but deliver it in such a fun, entertaining way, they kill. And I've seen some people who are experts not get any business because nobody wants to listen to them. Just because you're an expert doesn't mean you're interesting to listen to.
Oh, absolutely. And it's interesting. I mean, some of the best experts are not the best teachers, right?
Yeah.
And it's funny because I learned that at a very young age. I used to see these I used to be in ballet 15 years.
Wow,
and I used to see these professional dancers really kill it on the stage. I couldn't wait to learn from them, but then they just really sucked at teaching. And I was going, oh my God,
Yeah.
Whereas the dancers that were a little bit more average were much better instructors. So that was I always found that really interesting. So you mentioned humor as being something that not only makes you bookable, but obviously entertaining to the audience.
Sure.
And you're saying that in some cases, that's the difference between being paid and being not paid.
Yeah,
so
can be.
What are some other differences or distinguishing characteristics of speakers that are paid versus not paid?
Well, again, I think a lot of it is positioning as expertise. Some people have certain things in the media, quote, best-selling author. But again, if you could be a great best-selling author, but you could suck as a speaker. I mean, just because you can write doesn't mean you can deliver the material, as you talked about with be a ballerina virtuoso, but just can't get across what they do.
Right.
I think energy, engagement, humor. When I say humor, I'm not talking about telling jokes. I'm just talking about finding the humor in what you talk about. It's one of the best reasons to record yourself, because if you are a speaker, as things happen, nuggets happen in let me get this across in an interesting way too. There's a couple schools of thoughts within speaking. Some people within the National Speakers Association, and if it works for you, great, think you have to literally do a keynote where you're scripting out your keynote. You're writing it word for word, carefully crafting each nugget, and then delivering it that way. I would shoot myself if I had to do that. I have certain pieces I will do, but hopefully if you're experiencing me live, it's like I'm in the moment as if. One of the things I learned from Tony is really being in the moment and present and connected to what you're doing. It's almost like you're outside of yourself, watching yourself, just letting it happen. I know that sounds kind of weird, but you're not internal thinking about what you're saying. No. You're with the audience and it's just happening. So I think people who are spontaneous, people who are real.
It's flowing.
Exactly. It flows, and you find the humor in common things that people can relate to. But it's got to have a flow up and down. You can't be out there high energy every single second. You're going to drive people crazy. For the visual people in the audience, they'll like that, but the auditory people are thinking, this guy speaks a little too quick for me. That can happen to me.
That's right.
Right.
And then you won't be relatable. Yeah.
Yeah. The kinesthetic people, you got to get a good feeling about you. You got to have those moments that are endearing and slow. I'll never forget early on. I used to do this more. I should do it more, but I used to do evaluations, and the best thing somebody ever told me was, if you pause more, the silence would be deafening.
Right.
Isn't that powerful? Some people are afraid to make the point and let it sit there and let it really sink in and resonate.
Yeah. Well, it's funny, those pauses, even though they're only seconds, can feel like minutes sometimes.
Yeah,
right?
absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Right.
Yeah, you know what? I think those are really good points about being in the moment. And, coming from a performance background and a rehearsal background, that's probably the thing that I've struggled with most as an emerging speaker,
Mm-hmm.
to the point where I had to have everything very scripted out and very worded for the longest time. And it's only really been the last few months that
Yeah.
I've said, okay, let me try and ad lib this a little bit more, be more in the moment. And it's fun. It is fun, but it's a big challenge for me because, being on the ESPN World Salsa Championship stage, if our hands weren't all the same direction,
Right.
we could be out. So really
Well,
interesting.
let me free you up, okay? Since I do a customized handout each time, I've got notes on stage. I've got a little stand-up, looks like a little music podium, the metal ones that fold up, and I
Yeah.
take that with me. So
Yep.
I've got my book right there. And then
Right.
it gives me the ability, like if I'm talking about a key point and I listed 2 or 3 things from my interviews, if I'm doing the challenge is I'm doing 3 presentations in a week. I can't remember everything, right? So I have the notes there.
Right.
There's nothing wrong with having some notes up there.
Right.
Having kind of a mind map of where you're going. I kind of do things, Tony Buzan, the mind mapping, things sequentially around versus having things point by point by point. So you can do that. But the one thing I will say with most people and professionals, you can relate this as to a performer. I'm sure you had some kind of routine before you took the floor for that dance. You didn't just go, okay, is it time? We're up. I mean, you had a very specific way to get your body warmed up,
That's right.
get your mind warmed up, your self-talk. It's the same thing for any athlete. My great example I love to use is Mick Jagger. They had a great story when they took the Stones on the road. They would take their dressing rooms with them, literally, and set it up. And Keith liked it this way, which is very interesting. And Ronnie liked it this way. And Mick, they said, had to have a 40-yard stretch where he could do weight sprints before he took the stage. And because he knew it was showtime. In his belief, he said he knew he had to bring the energy to the stage with him. He couldn't get there and let it show up because, man, people are judging you. Boom, when those lights hit, it's ready to go. I was watching a story on Maroon 5, Adam Levine. He's doing jump rope. He's jumping rope before he takes the stage. And most people, they're not prepared. People say, oh, I'm a little afraid of speaking. Well, you got to get your body there first. You got to get your body and your mind and have your opening awesome. Once you do that, you'll get momentum. You can tell a speaker is an amateur when they get up there and go, good morning. How is everybody? Thank you for having me. Rank amateur. You just blew the best opportunity in those first 7 seconds to set the tone and throw a reel out, hook people. Start with something unique, a story, a hook, a statistic that's interesting. They get people go, oh, wow, this is interesting. What's going on here? If you start out like everybody else, they don't care.